Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to North Metro Church. I'm Rob McDowell, and I get the honor of being the lead pastor of this amazing church right here in Marietta, Georgia. Listen, we are absolutely thrilled to see so many people tuning in and engaging with us week after week. And if you're new here, listen, you can follow along with us and with all that's going on right at northmetro.org, or you can actually check out the NMC app. We've got a great day planned this morning, and it all starts right now.
Well, hey everyone, and welcome again to North Metro Church. My name is Clark, and this is Heather. We have Mike back here on the keys, and we're so happy to join with you wherever you are. I don't know what's going on in your world right now. We just invite you right now over these next couple of songs to just join us and sing as an act of worship. I don't know about you, but in my world, I can't always trust what's going on in my heart. My emotions are all over the place sometimes, and my vantage point is very limited at times. And I love the fact that when we get to worship God, there's this amazing thing that happens for us where our vantage point starts to turn towards God's vantage point, and He gets to align our life around what He says is true, what He says is right. And that's what I need. I don't know about you, but that's what I need in my life. So just invite you, if that's what you feel like you need right now in this time, to join us as we sing. I want to pray for us before we start, and then we're going to jump into singing together. God, I just thank you so much that in my world where everything is constantly changing, and my feelings about situations change from one moment to the next, that yours doesn't, that you stay steady and you stay consistent and constant. And God, we can put our assurance and our faith and our hope and our peace in that. So God, I pray as we sing to you right now, Lord, that you would do the miraculous in our life. God, we don't want just an experience. We don't want just a moment to be able to have entertaining songs or anything like that, God. We want an encounter with the living God right where we are in our life, in our homes, wherever we are right now, God. And we just invite you to do that, to move in our life, to align our lives according to your perspective and what you say. We trust you. We sing to you, the audience of one. We pray that you would get all the glory and all the fame. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Let's sing together. I count on one thing. I count on one thing. The same God that never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now in the waiting. The same God who's never late is working all things out. You're working all things out. Oh yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh yes, I will. us, our heartbeat is to point all of this to you, to give you all the glory, all the praise, and all the honor, all the wisdom, all the treasure, all the riches is yours. All of our heart, all of our soul, all of our worry and our fear, we put it in you and we place it at your feet and we say, it's yours. Take it. You deserve all of it. All the glory is yours. So take all these things about us, God, every part of us, we lay it at your feet as a sacrifice. And we pray that this music that we have done right now, Lord, this heartbeat that we have sung with our lips, God, to you would just be a sweet aroma to you, to bless your name, to lift you up to the highest place in our heart because you do deserve it all. So, Lord, we join with all the angels and all the elders and everything that has breath that's praising you in heaven. And we say, you deserve all the glory. Have your way in our hearts. Teach us right now of who you are and what you've done. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Psalm 96:4 says, "For great is the Lord and greatly to be praised." Wherever you're watching this morning, I hope you were able to connect and worship the one who is worthy of it all, our great God and King. Well, hey, if you are tuning into our service for the first time, the very first time, when we would love to chat with you and to make it easy, all you need to do is just text the word hello to 678-290-7830, and one of our staff members will follow up with you. Also, for those of you who are brand new to NMC or you've been visiting for a while, you're invited to jump into our digital connection room experience with some of our pastors. We simply call it our Zoom room. That's where you can find answers to any of your questions that you might have about our church, and you'll be able to meet and connect with some of our pastors that we have here on staff. You can find that Zoom room link over at northmetro.org or in the chat or comment sections there if you're watching that way. Now, that Zoom room happens immediately after today's service, and so we cannot wait to actually connect with you and meet with you. Now, if you've been hanging out with us for the past couple months, chances are you've heard something about our weekly survey. And so I just need to say thank you so much to those of you who've participated. This has been a great tool for leadership to know just how we can serve you better really week in and week out. So this week, I'm asking every single one of you to take just a couple of minutes to complete the survey because all the questions focus on future opening plans. Everyone has feelings and everyone has opinions on this. And that is exactly what we need to know. We want to know. We value that. And so help us, help you, help us, if that makes any sense. You can find that link by visiting northmetro.org or within the NMC app, or you can text NMC survey to 90888. It's really easy, doesn't take much time, and we really need this timely information. So thank you in advance for taking just a few moments to fill that out. As many of you know, Must Ministries' food pantry has been depleted due to higher demands and increased feeding programs. So last week, we launched a food drive in partnership with Must Ministries, and as expected, North Metro, you crushed it. By the end of the week, the cans were overflowing. We asked for actually double the amount of cans I usually give, and you guys just blew it out of the water. Awesome. And we originally planned for the food drive just for 1 week, but we're going to go big, and we're going to give everyone another week to participate. So now the NMC food drive will go through Sunday, May 24th. Look, I know you know this, but there are hungry people in our community. These are our neighbors, right? They're our friends. And this is what we get to do as the hands and feet of Jesus, right? We have a growing reputation as being a very generous church, especially when it comes to serving those in our community. So thank you, just thank you once again, my dear friends, for continually demonstrating God's love and kindness when people need it most. So thank you. Those collection bins are set up on the NMC outdoor pavilion right now, and Must has actually asked for specific food items to be delivered. So please don't just go into your pantry and go, we don't need this anymore, Mildred. No. Head over to northmetro.org to see our shopping list of the requested items. So North Metro, we can do this. So join us. It's going to be awesome. Thank you, and loving on these people in our community. And I want to say a big thank you for all of you to be being so faithful with your financial contributions to North Metro Church during this time. You are on mission, and we see it, we get it. We cannot wait to get back to serving our local partners with our hands. But I can tell you, your financial gifts are helping to meet the ongoing needs in our community and beyond, and all for the glory of God and furthering His great name. For ways to financially partner with North Metro Church, just visit the Give page there at northmetro.org. You know, this has been an interesting school year, to say the least, right? And for some, it's been an anticlimactic ending to a high school or college journey. And so for those of you who have just graduated or are graduating in the next couple of weeks, we just want to say how proud of you we are. You did it. Man, we've been cheering you on in this journey, and we will continue to be here for you, cheering you on as God leads you to your next endeavor. And as a church staff, we wanted to say from the bottom of our hearts, congratulations! And finally, I'm so excited about the next 3 Sundays. We are going to pick up where we left off with our series, Jesus is Better. And we've been walking through the book of Hebrews found in the New Testament. And in the next 3 weeks, we are going to bring it to a close. And so this morning, we have the great opportunity to hear from our student pastor, Matt Johnston, as he dives into this amazing book of the Bible. So you grab your Bible, open up the NMC app and click on the Sermon Notes tab there and get ready to learn what God has for us today.
Good morning. My name is Matt Johnston, and I am the student pastor here at North Metro Church. And today, we're going to jump back into our series, Jesus is Better. And this series has been an almost year-long journey we've been on together through this brilliant, incredible work called the Letter to the Hebrews. If you have like a favorite show, you know that like if it goes for like 7, 8, 9 seasons, like it's got some run to it, that last season's really exciting. It's like the epic conclusion, the crescendo to the show. These next 3 weeks, it's like the epic conclusion of this incredible work. So we're excited about it. Hope you guys get excited about it. And specifically today, we're going to hop into chapter 12. But here's what I want to do. Because we've been out of this series, I don't want to just dive into chapter 12 without any kind of context or having you guys even remember what we've talked about. So I want to give you the big picture of this letter to the Hebrews. And I'm a visual learner, I'm a visual thinker. Even when I'm plotting out sermons, I always draw them out. I'm just very visual. So I want to bring you guys into the process today. And I want to show you the big picture of the letter to the Hebrews. And then we'll find where our passage is within that, because everything we read today is going to be tied to and connected to everything we've talked about so far. And so I wanted to try something a little unique and a little creative visually. I'm actually going to show you my sermon prep process, and we're going to kind of draw the passage out together, and I'm going to kind of Bob Ross it on this iPad, and we're going to see how it works. So we got the title, Hebrews. I apologize in advance for my handwriting. So Hebrews was written by, well, your guess is as good as mine. Nobody really knows. Some people ask, is it Paul? Maybe. I don't know. Is it Luke? Who knows? There's a couple other guesses. Some people believe it could have been a woman who wrote it. Man, so I gave her a long neck, and okay, here we go. And her hair looks like the McDonald's arches. Sorry. No, now it just looks like she got a spider on her head. Okay. So anyway, Hebrews, we're not really sure who the author is, but we do know who the audience is, and to whom is being written to. And so you got to keep this in mind. It is a group of people. It's actually many, which is the Greek word melon. And keep that word in mind because that is going to come back later. And these people are Jewish people. Now, a lot of times people say they were former Jewish people, or formerly Jewish. Well, here's the thing. They still are very Jewish. They're ethnically Jewish. They grew up Jewish. They were rooted in the Old Testament, and the author of Hebrews knows this. And so they are still very much Jewish. They might even still practice some of the Jewish holidays, observe some of the Jewish feasts. And again, they're rooted in the Old Testament. You got to keep that in mind. That changes the game. So that's the audience, and you have to remember this is a letter written to these people. So some people say the book of Hebrews. No, this is a letter. This is a communication. This was probably a two-way street between the author and the audience. And that affects the meaning too. So this is a letter that was transmitted to this group of people. Boom. Now the next thing you have to keep in mind that this letter is actually, and this is a game changer, it's one united sermon. We tend to read the Bible and read passages in the Bible like tweets. You know, just like one little part here, one little part here, one little quote here, one little part. Well, that's devoid of context. And so you don't really know like where an author's going with stuff. You don't know like in what sense, where they're trying to take things. So we shouldn't read the Bible like a tweet and just kind of chop it up into little bits. We got to see the big picture, which is part of the reason why we're doing this. Just think when you check someone's social media, there's not a lot of continuity or consistency to what they're posting. You're like, oh, silly kitty video, ridiculous meme, conspiracy theory, let's be honest, like whatever else. Just flipping through, there's not a lot of continuity or through lines. So the Bible is not that. We want to read this as one unified sermon. So let me bracket this out. It's one big unified sermon, starting with chapter 1, if you can believe, and then ending in chapter 13. Now we have to ask the timeless question, why is the author writing this letter? Why is he sending them this sermon? Well, this is kind of a two-part answer. There's an ultimate aim, there's an ultimate goal, there's kind of a destination he wants them to reach. But the author, he or she, actually wants them to get there a certain kind of way. And so there's a certain, in this day and in this culture, there's a certain assent, there's a certain action or belief that they're calling people to. And this is what the author of Hebrews wants. The author wants the people, they use a lot of running language throughout the book. So kind of like marathon running. So we're going to draw a little running person here. No, this isn't good. All right, cool. So, I don't know, he's stiff-arming someone. There we go. So they're running. We got a running person. Here, let me draw some arrows so we know what's happening. What's good. And so they use this running language in order to encourage the audience to, hold on to this, to faithfully follow who? Jesus. With endurance and perseverance and confidence. Those words are going to be used a ton in Hebrews. Endurance and perseverance and confidence. This is exactly what the author wants to see from his audience. And this is going to lead us to a destination, but we'll get there here in a little bit. So he writes this unified sermon, but here's what the whole sermon is going to be predicated on. Here's kind of like the foundational argument. Jesus, this is where we get the title for the series, Jesus is better. Jesus is greater. And this is actually a very popular, very common form of argumentation back in these days. There's a technical term for it, but we'll just say it's the good to better argument. So we could have this discussion today. I'm a big coffee drinker. I love it. And so if you like decaf coffee, I'm sorry. But I could say, well, decaf coffee is good. I'm not sneezing on that, nor will I sneeze in it. That's gross. But regular coffee is better. Or some of you, people in Georgia are passionate about this. Some of you would be like, ooh, I like KFC. Church's is okay. But Chick-fil-A is a superior chicken. So it's not like you're saying, you're besmirching one and saying, oh, this is terrible. You're like, no, this is good, but then this is even better. Or like, oh man, that's not the full picture. This is exactly what the author of Hebrews does. He's establishing this premise that Jesus is better. Not that the other stuff is trash or garbage or anything like that. No, Jesus actually is a fulfillment of what you like. Jesus is actually the perfection of what you know. And so this form of argumentation is actually going to push the text all the way through. It is the through line for the entire work. And even at 10, we're going to put this here. We'll get back to that. I feel like Bob Ross. We're just going to put a little 10 there. It's our little secret. All right, there we go. There's going to be a pivot point there. Now, as the author is making this argument, Jesus is better, Jesus is greater, the author uses exclusively Old Testament references and Old Testament allusions to communicate to the audience. So we'll just call these OT refs. So any good communicator does this. You take something your audience knows to teach them something they don't know. So like for students, I'm a student pastor, I make references to like Marvel movies because they all know and love those. I'll make references to sports because they're into that. Video games, that's where I draw the line. I don't know anything about those. But still, you got to know your audience to know what kind of references and allusions you can make. So or like even on my team, I love the NBA. And one of the guys on my team, my man Brian Ellison, is super into the NBA too. So when we're trying to illustrate something or make references, it's just constant NBA stuff. So that's what the author is trying to do here. And he knows his audience, right here, they were formerly Jewish in religious practice, but now they're kind of fulfilled in that and they're moving forward from that. And so he's making these Old Testament references. And he's going to reference things like the sacrificial system, and we'll get back to that. He's going to reference things like the priesthood and different priests. Give him a big hat. I don't know why. It looks like he's guarding Buckingham Palace with this, and he has no mouth or nose. All right. So he references the sacrificial system, and then the author is going to go back and reference this tent called the tabernacle. Going to go back and reference this temple. We'll come back and talk about these. And then finally, like all these patriarchs from like Abraham, we'll just call him Abe, to Moses, we'll just call him Mo, to even King David, like their greatest king. He makes all these references. Now, he's doing all this, or she's doing all this, whoever the author is, again, in order that people may faithfully follow Jesus and get to kind of this destination. Because here's the problem that the author has perceived. It's twofold. One, the author is worried about the audience falling away. He's afraid they will fall away, or afraid that they will fall off. So like back in the day, if something was like relevant or good, we used to say like it fell off, or like if there was like an actor or actress who was super famous and then just kind of disappeared, we always said they kind of fell off. That's what Paul was worried about. And especially in terms of like running a race or like this running language, not Paul, I don't know why. I guess I just assumed Paul wrote it. The author is afraid that they're going to fall away. And so just think about like if you're running a marathon and all of a sudden you're staying on the straight and narrow, and then you're like, you know what? I'm actually going to take a detour and I'm going to go to McDonald's. I'm going to do that instead of a marathon. Or if you're not into McDonald's, turn that frown upside down. Maybe go to Wendy's, get a Frosty and just dip the fries directly into the Frosty. He's afraid they're going to fall off. So that's why the author will say things like, hold fast, persevere, endure. But then that's only one fear. The second fear is that they're going to fall back to where they were before they started following Jesus. They're just going to kind of fall back due to persecution, due to internal conflict, due to just the fact that sometimes following Jesus isn't easy, and so there's an endurance issue, like, oh my gosh, enough already. And he's afraid they're going to fall back. So as they're running the race, he's afraid they're going to either fall off completely or just fall back, turn back, and return to what they have known. And so the author wants them to know that Jesus is better, and he's going to use Old Testament references to prove this. So, for instance, with this whole sacrificial system, the author goes through and it several times says, okay, you needed a high priest to kind of intercede between you and the Lord and the people. Yeah, you don't need that anymore because Jesus is the ultimate high priest. And then he talks about the sacrificial system. And he talks about the fact that it was intended to cleanse their conscience. This word is used again and again. It was just like this symbol. It was this physical representation of the sacrifice that had to be made in light of sin. It was so that the people would realize the weight of their sin, that people would feel guilt and know that guilt and sin had to be dealt with. And so they would put this animal on an altar and they would sacrifice it, and they would know, okay, that has stood in my place. That has received the punishment. That was a sacrifice. Well, in Hebrews, the author comes in and says, no. Actually, using this phrase once for all, Jesus actually has become the sacrifice once for all. And so there's no more need for this whole sacrificial system. There's no more need for the guilt that you feel and the heavy conscience. No, because of what Jesus did, dying on the cross and raising again, he became the perfect sacrifice once for all. So you don't got to keep doing all the sacrifices. Then the author talks about this tent that the people of Israel had for years called the tabernacle. And in the tabernacle, there was this curtain. And behind that was called the holy place. And they believed that's where the presence of God dwelt. And all the people he's writing to would have known this. And then eventually, later on in history, there was this temple. And the temple had this giant curtain too. And it had a holy place. And they believed that's where the presence of God dwelt. And so the author of Hebrews talks about holy place all the time. Well, again, Jesus is better. Jesus is the fulfillment. Jesus is the perfection. So this is what the author says. You know what? Actually, Jesus is where the presence and the Spirit of God fully dwells because he is one and the same with God. And we actually read about this in a different letter, actually from Paul. In Colossians 1:20, he says, in Jesus, the fullness of God was pleased to dwell. So again, well, instead of the temple and these holy places that they would obsess with, you know what? Jesus is greater. Jesus is better than that. And then lastly, with the patriarchs, these people that they looked up to, Abraham, Moses, David. Okay, well, pick one. Jesus is better. Jesus has perfected their works. All of those people had foibles and flaws. Jesus did not. He perfected all of their work. Everything they did was just leading to and pointing to Jesus, the epic conclusion of God's redemptive plan and story he was writing. And so it's like Jesus stands as king over all of these because Jesus is better. And so that's what we're getting at in Hebrews, and that's the point. And so in our passage, we actually are coming in today at kind of right after this pivot point. Chapter 10 is this pivot point. Almost you can think of it like a door that's kind of swung open. And the first part of Hebrews brilliantly sets up the second part. So this first part is going to teach us how to live the second part is going to teach us how to live in light of the first part. So we've already talked about, and especially in chapter 10, what Jesus has done. So we'll just draw a cross here, and what he's procured for us. Well, the next section is going to talk about the continuation of that and how we live in light of what has been done. And so in chapter 12, we'll jump right into our text here. We're going to be in 12:14, and this is what the author writes. Strive for peace with everyone, and for the holiness without which no one will see the Lord. See to it that no one fails to obtain the grace of God, that no root of bitterness springs up and causes trouble, and by it many become defiled. So let's look at the first part. Strive for peace with everyone. So here's the actual wording. I'm going to write it in Greek because it sounds really cool. All right, so ire, and then diokete. So it's erenin diokete. This is actually a command. Diokete is actually an imperative. So the author is saying, here's something you want to do. And he actually is talking about peace. So the word for peace in Greek, I want you to say this at home because it sounds cool, is erene. Now, lower your voice a little bit and make it more breathy. Erene. Sounds amazing, doesn't it? Okay, if you're watching this with your significant other, I want you to turn away and then look and say, erene. It sounds hot, right? Well, this is a significant word to the audience that the author is writing to. And erene is actually based on this word from the Old Testament, this important word, and actually throughout the whole Bible, shalom, peace. And here's a concept of shalom that I didn't know, a concept of peace that I didn't know till later in life. And it was incredibly helpful and informative for me. So shalom is not just absence of conflict. It's not just like feeling good, no one's mad. No. Peace, shalom, erene, it's about fullness. It's about fully connected to others, to the Lord, to ourselves, we'll talk about that, and to the earth that we've been placed upon and that we are responsible for. It's just this like connection, this fullness. And again, this isn't something that we passively receive, this peace, this erene. No, actually, again, there's an imperative verb here, diokete, pursue it. It's almost like you would tell a dog, like, go get it, sick him, like, go get it, pursue peace. And I love that. I love how active that is. So we're told to pursue peace. And this actually aligns with the teachings of Jesus, where Jesus says, in his most famous sermon, the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says, blessed are the peacemakers. So central to the teachings of Jesus, and we'll learn central to following Jesus, is pursuing peace. It's important. But this is all in light, again, we have to know what's happened in Hebrews so far. It's all in light of the peace that's been made for us. So let's go back up here to the whole sacrificial system. We know that peace has been made. That peace between the Lord and with us has been made through Jesus. And so because of that, we can have peace with the Lord. We can have peace with ourselves. We no longer need to feel the guilt or the heavy conscience that the author talks about a lot. And we can bring more peace to this place we're placed in and responsible for. More kingdom come will be done on earth as it is in heaven. But then that peace has to be extended outward, externally, to other people. And so that's what the call is in this section, to pursue peace. But then we have this next part in 14 where it says, strive for peace with everyone and for the holiness without which no one will see the Lord. And so this word, I'm just going to write it because it looks cool in Greek. Hagiasmas. Hagiasmas. And so it means holiness. That actually means to be set apart. And so I want to just really make this simple and accessible for you. This word is normally used when authors are trying to encourage their audience to become more like Jesus. That's what that is. We can never be fully holy on our own, fully righteous on our own. No, we try to become more and more like Jesus. And again, this kind of gets back to the author's point. That's why he wants them to run after Jesus, faithfully follow, to become more and more like Jesus. In fact, that's why we say here at North Metro Church, we help people find, and I'm going to capitalize this, follow Jesus. Because that is integral to the Christian life. And it's really interesting in this passage, these two things, pursuing peace and holiness, becoming more like Jesus, seem to be irrevocably tied together. Part of following Jesus, an integral part of it, is pursuing peace. So we want to be like Jesus. We want to not just find Jesus. We don't want to just assent to Jesus or say we believe in Jesus. No, we want to follow Jesus. So in student ministry, we say this a lot. When you decide to follow Jesus, that's not your last step. That's your first step. The whole rest of your life is pursuing and following Jesus. We also say this, following Jesus is not a one-time decision. It's a lifetime commitment. And I tell people all the time, Jesus didn't call us to go make converts or go make people who vote Jesus to where there's like, I guess I believe in Jesus. Sure, that sounds good. I got nothing better to do. No, Jesus called us to go and make disciples. And so that's what we are to do as well. So we want to become like Jesus. We want to help people find and follow Jesus. And so part of holiness is just striving to become more and more like Jesus each day to the glory of God the Father. And in fact, this is a way of living. In the early church, non-church people, non-followers of Jesus, actually called the Jesus movement the way. And so it is a way of living. It's a way of existing in the world. It's a pursuit. And again, pursuing peace is a big part of this. And yes, we always, always, always look to the sacrifice on the cross and the empty tomb. And we talk about what has been done for us. But we should also talk about on the other side of the cross, on the other side of resurrection, what we are to become. Because that is important too. And so we are called towards holiness, called to be more like Jesus every day. But again, this seems to be tied in this passage to pursuing peace. So, in preaching, they always talking about have a bottom line. So I'm going to draw a bottom line here. And this is what I want to suggest today. Perhaps peace, focus on the word peace, is the holiest pursuit. And that's active, that's an ongoing thing. And so I feel like if we're truly followers of Jesus, we must be seeking and pursuing peace at every turn, in every relationship, individually and corporately, which we'll get to. But here's the problem that we're presented with in verse 15. There's a warning here. See to it that no one fails. Okay, so see to it, actually in the original language is this warning. It's beware, be cautious. I mean, it would be like a yellow sign with an exclamation point. Be careful that no one fails to obtain the grace of God, that no one's denied the grace of God, that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no root of bitterness springs up and causes trouble, and by it many become defiled. So as we are here trying to pursue peace, wholeness, shalom, eirene, and in doing so, becoming more and more like Jesus, there's an impediment that we're presented with here, and it's this bitter root that grows up. And it actually stands in the way of our becoming more like Jesus, stands in the way of us following Jesus. And if you've ever had like a weed or anything like that, or any kind of thing you've had to get out of your yard, you know that weeds and things like that, bitter roots, they go deep, and roots run deep, and it's a whole network. And it's sprawled and intricate and not easy to pull up. So during like the first stages of the quarantine, like many people, if you were at Home Depot, you knew this or tried to go there, my wife and I decided we were going to get our yard game together. So we started pulling weeds, getting rid of trees, and there were so many times where I went to go pull something, and it was just like a little plant like this, but I knew it was a weed or something that was grown up that I didn't want to become a problem. And I'd go to pull it, and there's like more to it. And then you're like, okay, so how? You pull it again, and there's more to it. And it turns into like this magic trick where you're just like, or it feels like you're rolling up an extension cord. You're just, and that's what when you're trying to pull weeds, that's what the roots are like. They go deep and they go far. You almost feel like they're probably connected to your neighbor's yard, and you're pulling the whole thing. Well, this is the problem when we're trying to address this bitter root that can grow between people. Again, the author is looking at it and saying, you know what? There's something that's standing in the way. There's something that's raising up that could pose a problem. Now, getting back to our original audience, this quotation of bitter root would be familiar to his audience because this actually goes all the way back to Deuteronomy 29. And in Deuteronomy 29, Moses, who we talked about earlier, that guy, Deuteronomy 29, Moses is telling the people of Israel before they go into the promised land, hey, be careful, make sure that no bitter root rises up among you and contaminates everyone. And what he's saying in context, we don't have time to go into the full thing, but he's saying, hey, make sure everyone is faithful, make sure everyone's doing what they're called to do, because one bad apple essentially can spoil the bunch. And so this bitter root would actually take us to this mindset of, the actions of one person can actually affect the many. The problems that rise up between maybe two people can affect everyone. So, for instance, my wife right now has the big thing of dill, like this herb dill, in the fridge. And everything in the fridge that's in the open area now tastes and smells like dill. Not my favorite taste. Similarly, there was this other time where my wife left green onion in like our vegetable drawer. And so every time I would go in to get like kale, it tasted like green onion. Or like spinach, it tasted like green onion. I know what you're thinking. Man, this guy's got a really lame diet. But still, everything tasted like that bitter herb or that like potent taste. That's the point the author's trying to make here. See that no bitter root rises up because it uses the word defile. It can defile and affect everyone. And in fact, the last word of this passage is the word many. And it's malone. And that's where we get back to, we talked about earlier, this collective. And so here's what we know from this. We want to avoid, as we pursue peace, we want to avoid something growing up to block and hinder that, because that's going to block our following Jesus and becoming more like Jesus. But then, when bitter roots do grow up, they run deep and they affect everyone. Because here's the deal. We are all irrevocably tied together and inseparably bound. We just know this as people. And matter of fact, we've actually learned this recently on a whole new level. Let's talk about COVID-19. COVID-19 did not just happen to one person. It did not just happen to one country. It didn't happen to just one people group. No, it was a worldwide pandemic. And so what happened with one person in one part of one place affected many. We're all way more connected than maybe we even think we are. Similar thing happened recently in Brunswick, Georgia. One thing happened to one person in one place, and it infected or affected the entire nation. And so, again, we're more connected. We all felt things together. We all started talking about it. And it happened back in February, but we're just talking about it now. And so this one thing that happened in one place affected everyone. And I would argue that is good and right, and that's how things are. We need to see that connection and not allow bitter roots to grow up. My favorite preacher all time, this might surprise you, is MLK Jr. Yes, incredible civil rights activist, but also the best preacher that I've ever read. And MLK Jr. had this incredibly brilliant quote. It's one of my favorite quotes of all time. He said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." And so just like the author of Hebrews knew, Dr. King knew, we're all connected. What happens with one affects everyone. And if we allow bitter roots to grow up, it is going to become a problem for everybody else. So here's what we have to do. We have to find, so let's draw off the bitter root here. We have to find whatever is growing out, whatever is manifesting here that is between us and someone else or us and other people. And here's what we have to do. We have to recognize it. But then, even more, what is incumbent upon us, especially as followers of Jesus, which is what this passage is arguing, we have to reach the roots. We got to get to the heart of the matter. And then lastly, once this happens, once these two happens, we have to remove what's going on there. We have to remove the bitter root. All right, so for those of you big picture thinkers that have been following me along, we're good to go. For those of you who like to make lists and you're like, hey, where's the list, guy? Like, what's going on here? I got my pen out and I'm ready. For you note takers, I got you. I want to give you 4 things, 4 practices to employ, 4 steps to take to help you address and get rid of that root of bitterness that can grow up between us and hinder our following Jesus. So here's the first one. Take account. Almost misspelled it. Woo! That was close. All right, so take account. Start asking yourself the question, okay, so who am I avoiding? Who do I not want to talk to? Who, when someone says their name, am I like, oh my gosh, seriously? Or who do you roll your eyes at? Or maybe on a more profound level, who, when you think about them, do you feel deep feelings of bitterness and anger and resentment? Or perhaps hurt and woundedness? Again, we have to first recognize what's standing between us and someone else or us and other people before we can even get to the roots. So take account in your life of your relationships. And again, individually and corporately. Maybe there's a certain group of people that you're like, oh, them and they. Whoa, who is that for you? Take account. And then you're going to have to do the deep work as you take account of, well, just how, again, we talked about we have to reach the roots. How deep does this thing go? And what is this tied to? What's really at the heart of the matter? And you know what? Sometimes this is difficult. Sometimes maybe it's profitable to go talk to someone like this, like a counselor or a therapist or a pastor or someone like that to really get at the root. But you want to get rid of the root. You want to take account of what is, because you can't move forward until you do that. And there's this verse in Proverbs 14. It's actually verse 30. And it says that a heart at peace is health to the body, but bitterness rots the bones. And in the original language, the word bones there means it's etzem, it means essence. Bitterness rots your essence. So you don't want this growing up, and you don't want this undergirding your relationships or your views of people. You want health, you want healing. So take account in your life. Be aware, be cognizant of what's going on, and kind of survey that. Second thing, take the longest word in the human language, okay, responsibility. Woo, I should have made a shorter one. Take responsibility. You got to own what is yours. Now, I will say this on a prefatory note. Some stuff has been done to you in your life, and you have been the victim of certain things that are not okay and are inexcusable, and you need to seek healing with that, and I think separation and distance is healthy. And talking to people and seeking help is a good thing. But taking responsibility in certain situations, you can make peace, and there is a part of it that is yours to own. So I'll use myself as an example. So there's someone in my life, I was talking to a counselor recently, super helpful by the way, and we were talking about someone that I know, and I was like, oh, this person, they've wronged me in these ways. And this goes back years. And it's like, they've wronged me in these ways. And I feel this about them and them and this and that and them and them. And then the counselor goes, I didn't ask about what they are feeling and what they do and what motivates them. I asked about you. And that was a game changer for me because I'm like, oh yeah, I'm only talking about them. I have a stake in this. I'm accountable and I'm responsible for how I feel towards that person. And so I had to take account of that and then take responsibility for it. And I had to start pulling at the deep roots. Where is this wound? Is this kind of ridiculous that I feel this way towards you? What things that this person has done to me are unjust and wrong, and I can call them that. But I can also take responsibility for what part of it I have, how I feel towards them, and how I act towards them, which we'll get at here in a minute. By analogy, if you have kids, I grew up with a lot of siblings, and one of the things we always said is like, don't snitch, like don't tell, don't tattle. Well, I think it's the same with the Lord. I don't think the Lord wants us to go before him and be like, you wouldn't believe what they did. Oh my gosh, well, they said this, but they did that, but that's not what the Lord calls us to do. That's not maturity. That's not faithfully following Jesus. No, we're called to pursue peace. So if your child came up to you and was like, Timmy hit me, and then you talk to Timmy and you're like, hey, Timmy, why'd you hit him? And Timmy goes, because he hit me first. Are you going to look at Timmy and be like, oh, in that case, sorry. Yeah, he definitely had it coming. I hope you really let him have it. In the future, try to give him a shiner so he really gets the point. No parent's ever going to say that. So I think it's the same with the Lord. The Lord doesn't want us to go, but they first. No. That's not how it works. We take responsibility for what is ours, and we pursue peace at all costs. Next thing I would recommend, take responsibility. Then I would say, this is an important one, take compassion with you in every mental exercise, every conversation you have, take compassion with you. With this one person in my life, I had a hard time feeling empathy and compassion. And so someone I was talking to made this brilliant point, and they gave me, I've got a very vivid imagination, and they gave me this visualization. They said, picture that person like a scared little child lost in the woods, running to you with tears streaming down their face and their arms in the air because they're lost. Running at you and jumping into your arms. So once they told me that, they then asked, so how do you feel now, Matt? And I was like, I feel compassion. Like, I felt it. That helped me visualize, now I feel really bad for them. Well, I think we should extend that same compassion towards all people. We're all out here trying to do the best we can. We all will fall short. We all hurt one another. We're all trying to get through life, and it's hard. So we need to have that compassion for other people. Now, sometimes this is a little weird because I had this basketball coach in high school that always said like really hurtful things. And I tried to do that with him, but it's hard to picture like a 60-something-year-old man running at me and be like, but please, I'm lost in the woods. Help me. Like that was a little ridiculous, but it was a helpful exercise nevertheless. So I want to give you that. Take compassion into situations and circumstances. Take compassion towards relationships, either individually or corporately. It'll be a game changer. Last thing. Call to action. Again, everything's very kinetic and active in this passage. Take a step. Take a step forward. Notice all the arrows in this drawing. Everything is moving forward, moving us more in our pursuit of following Jesus. Take a step. Do one small thing. Do the next best thing. One teeny tiny step. And here's what I've learned in the process. Sympathy, empathy, and compassion, they don't cost you anything. So despite how you feel towards a person or a group of people, you know what you can always do? You can always extend some sympathy, some empathy, and some compassion. That's free. So we probably don't need to be stingy with that. So I would encourage you, for those you need to, extend that. Take a step. Have a conversation. Even if it's someone from your past, get on Zoom. We all know we're out there connecting with like high school friends, college friends. Some of you are probably talking to like your middle school teacher on Zoom. We're that bored at this point. Start a conversation. Start a Zoom. Start a text. Reach out to someone. In fact, right now, think of that person you can reach out to. Take that step to pursue peace. But once again, I started this section with this, and I want to end this section with this. There are times in our lives where people have hurt us in very wrong ways, and it's just injustice, top to bottom, left to right. And so sometimes distance is healthy, or sometimes justice is what is needed and called for, and you can pursue that too, because God is a God of justice. But it says this in Romans 12:18, and I love this, and this helps me kind of discern between the two. Paul's actually writing this time to this church in Rome, and he says in Romans 12:18, he says, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with all people or make peace with all people. And that helps me. As far as it depends on me, I take account, I take responsibility, I take compassion, and I take a step. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't go anywhere, I can rest my head on my pillow and know that I did what the Lord had called me to do. And I did not let a bitter root grow up to impede or hinder my following Jesus. So what would it look like if we as the church, as followers of Jesus, were a force for peace in this world? I think sometimes throughout Christian history, the church has been the first one to be like, "Arr," and like slam their fist at something. No, what if we were the first ones to run towards and pursue peace and reconciliation? What if we truly recognize that we are called to this fullness, this shalom, this eirene, this peace. And because of what Jesus has done for us, we have that connection with the Lord. And because of that, we have this new connection with ourselves where we don't feel guilt or shame or heaviness, but we can rest secure in our identity in Jesus. And that can be the fuel that inspires and motivates us to bring more of his kingdom come and his will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And what if we took that mindset and didn't just keep it internally or where we're at, but we extended it outward towards others to make peace, to pursue peace? What if we were able to bring about this and be, I think Paul says in another letter, he says, ambassadors of reconciliation. What if we help bring this shalom? What if we helped bring this eirene to the earth? And this is kind of where everything is going. If you read the Bible and you believe the Bible, where everything is going is a day in which Jesus' kingdom and reign will be fully manifest on this earth. And so there's this portion of scripture in Isaiah 2. And Isaiah says this, that someday when the kingdom is finally realized, people will take their swords and beat them into plowshares. They'll take their spears and they'll beat them into pruning hooks. And so basically Isaiah is taking this language of like things we weaponized, the violence, the anger, the things that came between us, those are actually going to be repurposed someday for good and for nurturing and for growing things and for flourishing. And so what if we just took that next step of peace in our family, with our friends, with our significant others, and with our society? I believe the church is called to do that. And Jesus is the hope of the world, and we live with that living hope, and so we are called to pursue peace, to be more and more like Jesus. So may you today realize that peace is the holiest pursuit. And as you pursue that, may you realize that because we have been forgiven much, we have much to forgive. And as we live with a living hope, may our hope propel us towards more for the world. More of the kingdom come, more of the will to be done on earth as it is in heaven. And as you're pulling up the bitter roots, as you're recognizing them and you're trying to remove them, I pray that the Lord continues to heal your hurts.
How great the chasm that lay between us, how high the mountain I could not climb. In desperation, I turned to heaven and spoke your name into the night. Through the darkness, your loving kindness tore through the shadows of my soul. The work is finished, the end is written. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Who could imagine so great a mercy? What heart could fathom such boundless grace? The God of ages stepped down from glory to wear my sin and bear my shame. The cross is spoken, I am forgiven. The King of Kings calls me his. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe, and out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to break, and out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Oh, Jesus, yours is the victory. Oh, and hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ. You're my living hope. Oh, hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. For Jesus Christ, my living hope.
Well, my dear friends and family, as our time today is coming to a close, man, let's just be encouraged and empowered, like Matt said, that we would take account and take responsibility, take compassion, and then take the first step. I truly hope that you sense the presence of God with you today as we worshiped and learned from God's word. And listen, if you would like someone to pray with you today, it would be our honor, it would be our joy to pray for you. So you head over to live.northmetro.org and someone will be glad to connect with you one-on-one this morning and pray for you and for really whatever you're walking through today. And again, if you're visiting with us today and you would love to meet some of our pastors and ask any questions that you might have, we would love to meet with you and connect with you there in our Zoom room. The link can be found right on the homepage, right there at northmetro.org. So run over there and we would love to connect with you. Listen, I hope you have a blessed week. And if we don't see each other beforehand, then I'll meet you right here next week. I love you, North Metro. I'm praying for you, and I can't wait to see you.